Everybody hates the suck up. They're always out there schmoozing with the boss and the leadership, credit jumping whenever possible, and behind closed doors, they're lazy, they don't do any work, they gossip, they spread rumors, and the worst of it is when they get rewarded and promoted for it. Now, the question is, how do I stand out to my leadership without being the suck up of the team, without coming across as the suck up of the organization? Well, we're going to be discussing that on this episode, how to stand out to your leadership and your bosses, and also how to do it in a way that you're not going to be labeled as a suck up inadvertently. Guys, if you get any value out of this video or any of the videos you see on our page, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you can get notifications when more videos come out. And if you comment the word leadership at the end of this video, you'll get a shout out on a future episode. Love you guys. Stay strong. All right, this is Libretti Leadership Lab number 12 with me, John Libretti. For those of you who don't know me, founder of SPEARHEAD Leadership. We are the John Taffer, the bar rescue of your business. We are high performance executive management experts that come into your business, get in the trenches of your business with you to identify your problems, understand your goals, and then get clear on a solution to help you become a better leader to solve those problems in the long term and to help your new managers turn from high performers into skilled leaders. If you're interested to find out more about us, check us out on our website, www.spearheadleadership.co. You can also see us on Instagram at _Spearhead Leadership and on LinkedIn at Spearhead Leadership. Now, we all have experienced the suck up in some way, shape, or form in our lives. Whether we were kids growing up and the sports teams had the coach's pet or the teacher's pet in class, or now the boss's pet in your job. And the suck up is always the person that looks good to the boss, but is never actually doing any of the good work behind the scenes with the team and actually helping the team succeed. They're out there to get the brownie points, to get the recognition, to get the credit, to get the rewards, maybe get the promotions or the bonuses or what have you. But everybody knows behind the scenes they are not well liked, they are not respected, and they create a very toxic work environment because of that. And it's tough to get out of because if you're a hard worker on your team, you want to go tell your boss, hey, this person's a fraud. But what happens when you do that? You get labeled the tattletale, the rat. The boss may come down and say, oh, you're just jealous because you're not getting the accolades this person is getting for their hard work, and maybe you should step it up a little bit. And you get put into that corner. And it's frustrating and it's annoying for everybody around you, not just you, but your coworkers, everybody on the team. It's a tough spot to be in. But then it also creates a little bit of a catch-22 situation, a different tough spot for you guys. It's now becomes, how do I stand out to my boss and to my leadership without being labeled by the rest of the team the suck-up? And that's tough, too, because a lot of times you're not going to be in positions to show the team, hey, I'm actually contributing here. I'm not just a fraud. And there's also going to be that sort of high school mentality within organizations, with the teams a lot of times where there's gossiping and rumors. Maybe somebody doesn't like you. So even if you are doing good work and everybody sees it, they're still going to be spreading rumors about you in a negative light. And it's tough to sort of get out of that stigma of, oh, if the boss likes me, I must be, the teacher's pet. I must be a suck up. I must be just trying to credit jump to get promoted or whatever. And it's a difficult thing to find yourself in. And I've been in it a lot of times. I've also been in a lot of situations where I was labeled the suck up. And it sucks. For lack of a better term, it sucks. I remember growing up, trying out for sports or playing on different sports teams. I don't have the athletic talent to stand out in the same way that a lot of other athletes do. I am not 6'5". I don't have a lot of natural born athletic talent, coordination, what have you. I always had to work a little extra for all of that. So I would try to stand out to the coaches and to prove value, to show value to the team in other ways. And when you're growing up, when you're kids, high school, even college sometimes, you're going to get labeled more often than not as, oh, the coach's pet, the teacher's pet, whatever. You're just doing all that stuff so the coach thinks, so they put you on the team for sympathy or whatever. And it sucked to get that stigma, because when you do work hard and when you do try and when you do have value to give to the team, it's very deflating and disheartening when other people around you are responding to you in that way, responding to your efforts in that way. So I definitely get it. And it's like I said, it's definitely frustrating and deflating. But luckily, we're adults. Now, if you're younger and you're watching this or listening to this, you can still do this stuff. Believe me, okay? You can still take this action and prove your value and stand out to your coaches, teachers, leadership, whatever. If you're younger, you're gonna have to deal with a little bit more of the stigma, because as we're growing older and maturing and our brains are evolving, there's still going to be that learning curve of people understanding that you're not just doing it for credit, you're doing it because this is your work ethic and your value. But you can absolutely take what we say here in this episode and run with it. For the adults out there in the corporate world, we're sort of lucky because we're adults, okay? And more often than not all the time, and we'll talk about that in a sec, but more often than not, the mature adults around you on your team are going to see you for what you really are and not see you for, just putting on a show, if you're being genuine about your efforts. So how do we do this? How do we stand out without being that suck up? It's very simple. You're going to hate the answer too. The simple answer, and this goes back to almost like one of the big reasons why Spearhead Leadership exists in the first place, why the Libretti Leadership Lab exists in the first place, is because leadership is the answer to all your problems, almost all of them, in life and career and job, everything. So you're not going to like the answer, but simply put, by being a better leader, you will stand out to your supervisors without being labeled the suck up. Now, let's elaborate a little bit. Let's talk through what the hell that actually means. And this is a good point now to remind everybody, once again, that leadership is a skill set. Okay? Being a good leader is a skill that you can acquire and build and grow and improve upon. It is not natural born, innate, whether you either have it or you don't. You might have natural born, elevated levels of leadership ability, but that doesn't mean that if you don't have it, you're never going to be a good leader. And it also doesn't mean if you have that, you're going to be a great leader. You still have to work at the skill. Just like in sports, there are some people who are more coordinated than others. There are some people who are naturally stronger than others, but you still have to work on the craft. You have to work on that sport, on the skill of that sport to get better. Riding a bike, same thing. It's a different animal to be able to ride a bike on the boardwalk in the Jersey Shore on those little beach cruisers than it is to go be a BMX biker that hits jumps and does flips and stuff in the air. That's a skill you have to acquire and work on. And that's what leadership is. So by being a better leader, by improving and focusing on improving yourself as a leader, and again, going back to what we just said, it's as a skill set. You don't have to be the boss of your team to be a leader. You could take these leadership traits, these principles, this skill development, and work on it internally, individually, and be a better leader individually without having to be labeled the boss, manager, supervisor, CEO, whatever. Not a job title. Once again, not a job title. I'm gonna be a broken record with that all the time. So you're gonna think about all the things we always talk about leadership and all the things we'll continue to discuss on little principles and traits and things you can do to improve yourself as a leader genuinely that'll allow you to stand out to your leadership, to your supervisors and bosses, and to your team as well. Your team will also be able to see your value because you're going to be a better leader. You're not going to be a better suck up. You're not just doing this in front of the boss. These are the efforts you have all the time. And that sort of goes back to values a little bit. At least it does for me personally, and for Spearhead Leadership's values, our core values. It goes back to integrity and character, and what you do when you think no one is looking. That shows your true character and your values as a leader or a non-leader, a bad leader. So think about that when we're talking about, how you can improve yourself to stand out. This is stuff you should be doing and focusing on at least all the time, not just when the boss is around. Now, what are some of the specific things we can do? We've talked about this stuff in the past. If you haven't followed along on the other previous episodes of the Libretti Leadership Lab, I highly encourage you to go check them out on the YouTube page, on Apple, on Spotify. We touch on all this stuff constantly, and we do so for a reason. We're redundant for a reason. And that's because, again, leadership is a skill you need to truly become better at it day in and day out. You have to be consistent with focusing on improvement, on learning, growing, and improving, even if it's a small little baby step increment. So we talk about this stuff in an education sort of way repeatedly for that reason, so that it serves as a reminder that you should always be focusing on learning, growing, and improving as a leader. So the big thing all the time as a leader, building better relationships. And that's not just with your boss, that's with your peers as well. Building a stronger bond with the people on your team, peers and supervision, is absolutely going to help because you're going to learn about them more. You're going to learn about their strengths and weaknesses. You're going to be able to help enable their strengths, empower their strengths, and help them work on their weaknesses or help them pick up the slack on the things that they might be weaker at. And you build that bond, you build that trust and respect with each member of your team, each peer in your team, by building that relationship. And that one thing alone, it's one thing alone. It's a significant thing to do, is to build strong relationships. It takes a while. It takes a lot of work. Some people it's harder than others because you may not like them personally, but professionally, you can absolutely still improve that professional relationship. Now, it takes a while, but that one thing alone will have a significant positive impact on you being able to stand out without being perceived as a suck-up. Because everybody's going to know you better. You're going to have a better relationship with everyone. They're going to understand, oh, this is how Joe operates. This is Joe. He works hard. He helps these people out. The boss sees it. Everything's hunky dory here. This is Joe because I have a good relationship with him. I know him or her, whatever. So focus on the relationships always. Another big thing, effective communication. Talked about this in the past. Go check out the previous episodes on communication. Being able to effectively communicate, once again, means that you're not just speaking words clearly to how you might understand them best, but to how the others you're talking to and communicating with receive that communication. You have to make sure they understand what you're saying or emailing or doing or what have you. That's true effective communication. And that really comes with being a good listener, an effective listener to your peers and your boss, to the people around you. Because by listening and taking in, as opposed to just flapping your gills, you'll be able to understand the words that they use, the vernacular they use, the tone that they're using that resonate with them. Because if you think about it, more often than not, we're verbalizing in a way that we naturally feel comfortable with receiving. Oh, I know this word. I'm comfortable with it when people tell it to me, so I'm just going to speak it out as well. I'm going to verbalize it as well. We do that a lot in communication. So by listening, taking that little extra effort to listen to how people talk, take in how they're crafting emails or text messages or whatever, memos, whatever. Focus on that stuff, take it in and see how they're communicating, what resonates with them through their communication. And that way you can now more effectively communicate with them to them because you know how they receive it better. Does that make sense? Makes sense in my head. One of the unfortunate realities of a pre-recorded video or podcast is that when you're doing it solo, there's the feedback loop isn't there. That's why always highly encourage you guys to put comments in and give feedback that way. You can even DM. You can DM me on LinkedIn. You can DM on Instagram at _Spearhead Leadership. If you don't feel comfortable putting your question or advice or feedback out in the public world on a comment, you can DM it to us. But that's why I love getting comments and feedback because it closes that loop. It provides more effective communication both ways. So you want to be able to hone in your communication skills with your peers and your boss. Be able to clearly state what how you can provide value to your team, be able to effectively provide feedback to your team and to your boss without them taking it personal or getting defensive, and to allow them to receive that feedback, being able to effectively ask questions in a way that you're going to get the information you need. All that kind of goes into it. So improve relationships, improve communication. Third thing we'll talk about, another big one. These are all big. You can argue for the rest of your life what are the most important leadership traits and aspects to hone in on, and you can argue any one of them as the most important. So I'm always going to say this is an important one, this is a big one, but they're all important. And I want to make another quick caveat again to everybody. This is not leadership improvement, leadership development is not one of those things that if you don't focus on all these important traits and aspects 100% of the time, all the time, you're going to be a bad leader. You're going to fail. It's not an all or nothing situation. We are building better leaders by creating an effective, consistent process to incrementally improve ourselves day in and day out through repetition. So while I say, this is another important one, this is a big trait here, this is a big thing you can do. Yes, they're all important, but if you don't get it all figured out overnight, you're not going to fail, you're not going to get fired, nothing bad's going to happen. So I hope that, takes a little bit of a weight off your shoulders in that regard. These are things that you should be thinking about on a regular basis, but incrementally and consistently over time, a little bit each and every day, baby steps each and every day. That is the true key to success that we'll talk about on a future episode on how to become highly successful in that regard. It's through the repetitions, the baby step approach to achieving your goals. So with that, anyway, moving on. Your actions will always speak louder than your words. You've heard that a billion times, I'm sure. You've heard it a dozen times just from me talking about it on a regular basis. Through all the content we put out at Spearhead, actions speak louder than words. More importantly for you, when you're trying to stand out without being the suck up, your actions when you think the boss is not around. Again, a key indicator of a true verifiable suck up that nobody likes is that they only work hard and they say the right things and they do the right things when they think the boss is looking only, and when that boss turns their head or leaves for the day or is not around, that's when they shut it down and their true selves come out. But for you guys, everybody part of the Spearhead Leadership, Libretti Leadership Lab community here, your actions, your true self is going to be your actions all the time. It's just going to be who you are all the time. We're genuine here. We're the genuine article here. That's who we help develop, the genuine article leaders. So the actions you take with your team when the boss is not around, or even when you think the boss is not around, that is going to be the key delineator for you within your team, within your peer group, to prove that you're the real deal. You're really there to provide values for the team, and they're going to see that, and your boss will see it as well, even when they're not around. That's the big worry, and I get it. There's a lot of people out there that they don't do it just to be malicious or anything negative like that. They do it because they're worried, like, oh, if the boss doesn't see this, then how am I going to get the promotion I want? How am I going to get the bonus? How am I going to get the extra money to or whatever to be able to put food on the table for my family? My family's depending on this promotion, blah, 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 whatever it is. And you get worried, and your fight or flight sort of kicks in, your survival instinct, your basic caveman brain, when that kicks in, it only goes to the quickest way to your solution to get you back in your comfort zone. So you're no longer critically thinking, you're no longer taking the step back and analyzing situations and understanding logic behind things. It is survival mode. If my boss doesn't see value, I'm not going to get promoted. I'm not going to get hired from that new position. I'm not going to get the opportunities, blah, blah, blah. So you naturally like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything when the boss is around so that they do see it. And that's sort of how people slip into that suck up mode, because they're doing everything in front of the boss. When the boss is gone, now they think they can take the breath. Oh, I can breathe again. The boss is gone. Now I'll sit here and wait until they come back and they can see my efforts then. Meanwhile, your team sees the lack of effort when the boss is gone, and they see it as a negative. Even if you are doing it out of what you believe to be a necessity, your team's going to see it as a negative. And there's always also going to be those people that do it just because they're lazy and they only want the boss to see good stuff. So your actions when your supervisor is not there is absolutely key to building your relationship with your team, your peers, and strengthening that idea that you're the genuine article. You're the real deal leader. So don't forget that. That is probably, one of the most overlooked things that people don't really consider, especially now when there's so many work from home positions and your boss is hardly ever around, seemingly. And it's very easy to fall into that trap of like, oh, I'll wait until the boss emails me or we're on a team call with the supervisors there and the leadership elements there for me to actually chime in and contribute. Otherwise, I'll put it, what do they call it? Quiet quitting. That's not going to get you to actually stand out in the way you want them to. That's going to get you to what we don't want. Standing out, but being the suck up. So actions speak louder than words, and they speak even louder to your peers around you when you think the boss is not around or when the boss actually is not around. So another one that I like that a lot of people don't do these days, and there's a number of legitimate reasons why. Mainly, it goes back to toxic work environments and poor leadership, and there's just no incentive to do this anymore. But exceeding expectations when it comes to not just doing the tasks that your boss assigns, your supervisor assigns, but when it comes to helping out your peers as well, the people around you. Now, your boss, your supervisor, if they're a good leader, they're going to set clear expectations for you regularly, whether it's just for a particular task, whether it's for what they expect of you in that role, that job overall, or annually, whatever it is, they should be setting expectations for you. They have that. You're not going to get those expectation conversations with your peers, but I promise you, they have expectations of you. They just haven't said it out loud to you. That you never had that conversation with them, but they expect something of you. Don't know what it is. If you have a good relationship with your peers, you'll probably be able to find out, but there's going to be expectations. So you want to focus on exceeding those expectations as often as possible. Now, again, like I said, if you have poor leadership, if you have a toxic work environment, there's not going to be incentive to do that. That's a different conversation, a different leadership development conversation altogether that we'll get into at a future time. But if you're exceeding expectations and going the extra mile, not just when you're, what your boss and the task given down to you by your supervision, but when it comes to interacting with your peers, helping them out, finding out maybe what they're struggling with in their particular task or job and providing some assistance, even if they didn't ask for it, or at least offering up, hey, I can help you with this. Hey, I noticed that you said you were having trouble with X, Y, and Z. I'm actually pretty good at X. So if you want, I can help you out with that. Let me know. And being genuine about it. It's not one of those offer up something and then not actually follow through. Again, actions speak louder than words. But if you're exceeding expectations or striving to, both with your supervision and within your team with your peers, they're going to take notice of that. That's a big deal. They're not going to see you as the lazy suck up. They're going to see you as a highly valuable member of the team. All right, the last one I kind of wrote down in my notes here is something we discussed with the suck up always likes to credit jump, likes to steal credit whenever they can. Again, a lot of times giving people the benefit of the doubt, as often as I try to do anyway, a lot of times they do that out of fear of not getting the recognition they do deserve. And there's more often than not, there is recognition that needs to be, thrown out to people. People do deserve to be recognized for hard work, but there's that fear that they're not going to be for whatever reason. So they'll credit jump. The military, unfortunately, there's a lot of that going on because the way the chain of command works and the way the promotions work and who's on the board, on the promotions boards and awards boards and this and that, it is very easy to fall into that spell of taking credit when you didn't really deserve the credit for something because you're trying to delineate yourself up to a promotion board full of leadership element that you've never met before, or an awards board that you don't know who's actually reviewing your application for the award. And it becomes a lot of, hey, if I even spend 2 minutes on this task, I'm going to take credit if it becomes successful. So you don't want to do that. You want to avoid stealing credit for other people's work and stepping on anyone's toes in that regard as well. The best leaders out there, they do a very good job of passing on the credit. When the team succeeds, when somebody succeeds within the team, the best leaders out there give them the recognition. Point the finger at them for the success. These people right here, this person right here, whatever, they're the reason our team did well. If you've ever had a boss like that or a supervisor, you know what I'm talking about. If you ever had a crappy boss and supervisor, bad leadership, it's the opposite. They blame down and they credit up. When something goes wrong, what do? Oh, well, it was this guy's fault that we failed the mission. Well, I told them to do this and they didn't do it, so now we failed. And then when things go well, I led the team effectively and that's why we succeeded. There's a lot of that going around too. There's a lot of bad leadership going around too. But take a page out of the good leader handbook. Okay? Don't take credit from people around in your team that have done the work and it should be recognized. And if you think they're not being recognized, you take the time to make sure that they are. Hey, boss, just to let you know, Angie is the one who conglomerated all this data and analyzed it for us and put this package together for you. Just in case you were wondering, it was Angie. Whatever. That's a very, very trivial example right there, but I think you kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about in that regard. So nobody likes a credit jumper. Whether you're a supervisor or a peer, don't step on anyone's toes. If anything, do the opposite and give as much public praise and accolades to your peers as possible, and show them how much you appreciate their value and their work efforts and their contributions to the team. Now, if you focus on all these little things we discussed and you actually genuinely focus on improving yourself as a leader, it all goes back to all these are leadership traits. Just focus on improving yourself as a leader, developing as a leader, developing those skills. I guarantee you will stand out to your supervisors, your leadership element, and the vast majority of the people on your team are not going to label you negatively, call you out for being a suck up, anything like that. I will caveat all this though. We have to be realistic here. Okay? Realistically, the human factor plays a big role in all this stuff. Okay? We have to remember that all the time. On paper, it is very simple to be a better leader, to stand out without being a suck up. You follow you follow those things, you focus on these things, and on paper, it will all make sense. It should work without a problem. But we all know in reality, we have to factor in people. There's going to be people on your team who are poor leaders, poor individual leaders, poor self-leaders. They're going to get jealous. So no matter what you do, there are going to be people that still think you're a suck-up. And that sucks, for lack of a better term. But that's the nature of the beast. That's the reality of the situation. There are still going to be people out there who are not mature, who can't get out of their own ego's way, and they're going to get jealous, and they're still going to call you a suck-up and be pissed that you're standing out and they're not. And you just have to remember that that's going to happen. Those people are obviously more angry at themselves internally. They got some pain going on internally that they got to deal with, and some insecurities there. But it's the reality of the situation. You're also going to have crappy bosses and crappy leaders to deal with, who are still not going to recognize your efforts. They're still going to go and recognize the suck up only. Or maybe they don't like you personally. Maybe they have a problem with you personally, and it doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to recognize your efforts. Or they like somebody else more, so they're going to transfer the credit and the recognition over to that person. That's going to happen. And what I'll say to that, whether it's a peer that is not a good self-leader, or a boss that's not a good leader, whatever you're dealing with, as frustrating as it's going to be, the only thing you can do about it is control how you respond. And by taking ownership of how you respond to that is really going to dictate how you sort of lead through and advance through those situations. Now, the good leaders have to deal with this stuff all the time. There's always, even if you're a boss, even if you're a business owner and you're technically at the top when it comes to duty titles and chain of command, you still have peers in in the business network, in the business world. You still have people that are going to look down on you in a negative light. Now, the good leaders understand this, and they don't let those negative feelings control how they react. They take ownership of how they respond. They detach from those negative emotions, those frustrations, and all the negative feelings you get when you have a peer who gets jealous and still calls you a suck up, or when you have a boss who doesn't actually recognize your efforts. And you don't get discouraged by it. You don't let those negative feelings dictate how you're going to react. You're still going to press through, and through your actions, still be a better leader. And that's tough to do. And I get it. On paper, it's easy. Like I said, you're never going to like the answer, but simply put, leadership is always going to be the answer, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the easiest way. More often than not, the easiest way is to be a bad leader and to react emotionally and to not take ownership. That's always easiest. It's the most comfortable. But we're not going to do that. Okay? We're always going to focus on improving ourselves as leaders, even when it's tough, especially when it's tough. And this is why I always harp on the constant repetitions, the constant focus on consistently on improving and learning and trying to learn, grow, and improve as a leader each and every day, even a little bit. Because you're gonna stack up these days when it's sort of easy. You're not going to be dealing with big problems or negative situations all the time. Those happen, occasionally, some more often than not, depending on where you're working and who you're working with. But you're going to stack up days where it's going to seem easy because your day-to-day operations, your daily habits or whatever is going to be kind of mundane and boring, level playing field. And you're going to stack those days up of focusing on learning, growing, and improving as a leader so that when you have those big chaotic situations, negative situations, communication problems, personal conflicts, whatever they might be, your muscle memory is now more trained towards leading through it and falling back to what you know and what you've learned and what you've developed as a leader instead of falling back to whatever you were doing before you started developing yourself. See what I'm saying there? You picking up on what I'm putting down there? So work on these things. Focus on this stuff a little bit each and every day to build up, to stack those days and to get those neural pathways in your brain rechanneled to allowing good leadership to be almost second nature to you. So that when the time comes, you will stand out. You will be recognized by your peers as well, not in a negative light, but in a more positive light. That's all I got to say about that today, folks. Before we go, I always like to end the show very quickly with the big three. These are the three pillars that are part of my core values individually and part of Spearhead Leadership's core values in our company. And then the three pillars to staying strong and being a better, happier, kinder, healthier, less stressed, more genuine human being and a better leader overall in life. Number one, exercise every day. Do at least one thing each and every day to improve your fitness, health, and wellness physically, mentally, or emotionally. So that could be a full workout in a gym, going for a run, a physical activity. It could be breaking a mental sweat, reading a book, learning a new language, doing a puzzle. Or it could be on the emotional side, yoga, therapy, meditation, prayer, what have you. Do one thing each and every day to improve your fitness, health, and wellness physically, mentally, or emotionally. Number two, the hardest one to do, don't be a crappy negative person, be a kind person. When the opportunity arises to react negatively or initiate something in a negative light or create chaos and negativity and crappiness in the world around you, detach yourself from the negative emotions driving you to that. Detach from those emotions and remove yourself from that situation altogether. So whether it's on, in person with somebody who's being negative and angry towards you, or it's on the computer or on your phone, put your phone down, close your laptop, walk away from the situation, remove yourself from that situation. That way, you're minimizing the negativity and crappiness going on in the world and the world around you, and you're allowing yourself the capacity to go focus on more positive, productive things with your lives, like, I don't know, exercising perhaps. So give it a whirl. It's very difficult to do. I understand. When the emotions come into play in the heat of the moment, that's why I say it's the toughest one to do, because in the heat of the moment, it is very difficult to detach from those negative emotions. I get it. But we got to try a little bit each and every day. Number three, the most important one, be genuinely thankful and grateful for all the good you have in your lives. And realistically, to do this, think about at least one good thing in your life each and every day. Think about one good thing and think about what your life would be like without that thing. And if you take a few moments to sit in that and think about what your life would be like without that good thing in your life, that'll immediately put you in a state of gratitude. And the more often you're in a state of gratitude, the less compelled you are to succumb to the negative emotions and reacting emotionally as opposed to detaching. And it's also going to allow you the capacity again to go exercise. So you do these three things a little bit each and every day, repetition, repetition, repetition. I promise you, you'll be a better, happier, kinder, healthier, less stressed, more genuine human being, and a better leader overall in life. Thank you guys for tuning in again and listening. Comment the word leadership at the bottom of the video here on YouTube. If you got any value out of this, we'll give you a shout out in the future episode. Please put any questions you have in the comments or any feedback or advice you have. If you like this episode, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give us a thumbs down and tell us why. And if you don't feel comfortable putting it in public in the comments, please go ahead and put it in the DMs on LinkedIn at _Spearhead Leadership. Excuse me, that's Instagram. On Instagram at _Spearhead Leadership or at LinkedIn Spearhead Leadership, or you can find me directly on LinkedIn at John P. Libretti IV. And I'll take your questions, comments, concerns, all that's there. I thrive on that feedback. Again, this content machine, this show here relies on your feedback. We're here for you guys to learn, grow, and improve as leaders. So if you're not getting any value out of this, I want to know. And you could be direct as possible. You can throw the spears, whatever you got to do. That's what I'm here for. So I want to get the feedback from you guys so that we can provide a better experience for you moving forward. So please go ahead and like and subscribe, comment, DM, do what you got to do. Thank you guys again. Libretti, out.